the Bantu areas, which start from Congo, go around Angola, down to South Africa, and back around to Kenya. This entire region is owned by this one language family and has minority groups from other language families, but we will focus on the Bantus. If we look at these people and their religion and their culture and their stars, what we will see is that there is a calendar that is formed through, just like everybody else in the world, through farming. And their calendar has several words that are consistent within the entire regions. One of these words that is used is the word Lima for the Pleiades. The word Lima means to break apart. In other places it's Dima, in other places it's Rima. But the Pleiades resembles this. Farming takes place during the showing up of these stars. As you can see, the stars are broken apart. This is a perfect signal for breaking apart the earth, as the word implies. As you can see on several different countries, even the tippity top of Bantu lands all the way down to the south, east, and west, if we treat it like a cross, like a north, south, east, west thing, we can see that they have the exact same word for farming and they have the exact same word for the Pleiades. As you can see in the Swahili dictionary from 1848 and the Zulu dictionary from the 1800s, exact date not known, that they have the same word for the Pleiades because the Pleiades is when the Bantu people break apart the earth and start planting. If we look at these two calendars, one is Swahili, the one with Mwezi wa Kwanza, written name using numerical order, that's the Swahili one. And then the second one is the one with the fishes, that's the Zulu one. And in here you can see that they've sort of lined up these days with the European calendar with January, February, March. But these calendars of both Swahili and Zulu do not line up perfectly with the months of the Europeans because they use the moon. And as you can see here, the word Mwezi is the first day of the month in the first month in Zulu is Ulwezi, and Mwezi is the name for month in Swahili, and Miaka in Swahili, and Nyaga in Zulu means year. Both dictionaries try to put the months January, February, March, April, May, June, July to line up exactly. But as you can see with the ones that I showed you, the Pleiades and them, they don't fit. And with this one, you can see, January, like it starts in the middle of January and ends in the middle of February. The second one is like from the middle of March to the end of whatever. Then it just keeps going like this. And this is because they don't line up 100%. And this was true also in the Swahili area, except the ones that fully adopted like the Islamic calendar. And again, because the other one stopped in the middle of the next month, then April starts in the middle, and then of course the next one, June is gonna start. It was okay. It starts in March and ends in June in the middle, and then it goes on like this for a long time. This type of month is unique to the Swahili, Zulu, sort of southern eastern Bantu. There's actually another calendar that is too difficult for me to explain to you guys because There's a feminine side, then there's a masculine side, then there's all kinds of things. These are based on um constellation to season patterns, meaning that if you're a farmer, you have to look up at the stars and calculate them and make sure, because the stars repeat over and over again, and you can utilize the stars to make sure you get the similar or the same result every year. And that was their calendar instead of writing it down or something like that. The reason why I showed you these deep similarities, as you can see, those similarities are 100% deep, is because I want to show you these patterns. And I've already showed these patterns before, but with the context of knowing 100% that those languages belong to the same people who belong to the same migration. You look at this belt, and if you look at it, it kind of looks pixelated because, of course, it's done with a very strong pattern. Now, this is not just a random pattern. The patterns you see here form a language. Again, I wish somebody long time ago when they were making one of these Star Wars movies had seen this before, because can you imagine if they presented this as a language on a sci-fi? But this is actually a real language, and I'm telling you, and I've showed you before, this is a way of communicating in Zulu culture. And you can see with another culture, this belt belongs to of Kenya. You can see that they do the same thing. Deep understanding of geometry, deep understanding of language, and each one symbolizes something. Each color symbolizes something, each pattern, each direction, to the point where you can formulate large languages. It's not just random dots forming beautiful patterns. These abstract patterns, the reason why they're so detailed is because not they're not stylistic choices. They're not just, hey, that looks pretty. They're trying to communicate something. The Maasai too have them in spades, and there's several videos online of the Maasai translating their beads and what they mean. Also, you must remember, and I always forget to say this when I talk about these beads, there's a difference between these beads being used for love communication, these beads being used for war communication, these beads being used by families towards each other, the beads being used by enemies, and the beads being used as trade. These are all very different ways of using them, and the languages are going to be very different. Oh, yeah, there's one more. The beads being used by uh, healers, ngomas, as they're called, by healers of the day, the people who use herbs. And there's a sort of dice thing that we saw in Great Zimbabwe. So Africans kind of roll the dice when they do healing, and then they read the bones and read other things. And some of them, I think, are read with these patterns. At least the ones in Great Zimbabwe were read with patterns. You can see that in this South African version, they've replaced it with a real dice from the modern times. But you can then see with this other one that you still have the olden versions of the two-sided dice, and you can stretch these all the way to Ethiopia, Nigeria, North Africa, Egypt. They everywhere in Africa, and they're used consistently by healers for the sake of healing or contacting spirits or ancestors, depending on the culture. Usually ancestors.